David, I want to talk about the elimination of Homo sapiens by AI, or the risks that everyone's afraid of.
Fantastic. Looking forward to it.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Dana Gower, and I, along with Martin Brossman, am so pleased to be able to introduce David Donnelly to you this morning. David is a highly accomplished management consultant and entrepreneur with a proven track record of successfully planning and implementing major projects, programs, and among small, medium enterprise business management system frameworks, resulting in business transformation and performance management. He started his career with AECOM, a Fortune 500 global project and program management consultancy. After completing his graduate program in London, David traveled the world with AECOM, developing and implementing management system frameworks for government programs in Libya, Tanzania, and Kazakhstan. Seeking a break from the corporate world, David turned his hand to entrepreneurship, which is where we met recently here in Raleigh, right, David, at the NC State Entrepreneurship Program, and purchased a boutique consultancy in the UAE, which he grew and later sold to a Swiss multinational. It was this experience in the Middle East that inspired David to create Powered by 360. As an SME owner, it was an expensive and time-consuming process to onboard consulting support that was crucial to development and growth of the business. David believed that through utilization of AI, the management consulting industry could be disrupted and the service delivered in a faster, more cost-efficient way, making it accessible to SMEs. David has an MBA from the University of Liverpool in England, is a project management professional by the Project Management Institute, and is an ISO 9001 Quality Management Systems lead auditor. Welcome, David.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
It's the fear of everything. It's the jobs and AI taking over the jobs. And I'm thinking of the analogy with the first Moog synthesizer. When they came out, my friend's dad was a violinist for Motown and music, and Keith Emerson said, this is going to replace all instruments. Of course, it was a rack of cables and everything else, and his father was just constantly in fear, really the rest of his life, over that one statement, which really never happened. I mean, yes, we have great synthesizers that will, play close to violins now, but they're still using violins. And that's just an analogy, but I want to dig into the reality of what we see. And as you know, Dave, we also do a training for professionals on understanding these topics. Is why we like to interview experts like you.
I think a critical thing that you mentioned there was fear of change, really. And with the drive with AI and the explosion over the last 1-2 years, I think people now getting into the mainstream and going, okay, well, this is going to impact me. How is it going to impact me? And is it going to be driven by replacement of people? And ultimately, if jobs are being replaced, what are people going to do? And I think that fear of change is a critical driver of the success of AI. And I think it's down to people like myself and you guys to educate people and say, okay, well, look, AI is here. It's going to disrupt, but how do we leverage it to make our lives easier and deliver better quality services to our clients?
Clearly, companies are looking for an opportunity to reduce the workforce. I mean, a program is a lot less hassle than an employee. Where you think we're going to see this impact, especially in the service delivery area, and what are the changes that will be showing up the most? We already have them now. I mean, there are banks of legal assistants training AI, and as they get better and better, there are less of them in the room. So this has been going on for a while.
And I think that's a great example. The legal industry, I look at it and go, why am I going to pay $500 an hour to a lawyer when I can get this, not the same level of service at this point, but it will be in the future in a click of a button. I'm going through some processes at the minute where I'm looking at how do I plan my will and what happens in the event of something really awful. So first thing I do is go into ChatGPT and I type in, okay, I'm in North Carolina, I need a will, and then it will come back to me with something. I go, no, that's not quite right. and then I'll interact with it. And over the course of five minutes, I've got something that I can now take to a professional and go, can you please have a look at this for me? So instead of paying by the hour for them to develop that process, I'm now paying a fraction of that cost just to get the rubber stamp to say, yeah, that is good. You off you go, sort of thing. And with us as an organization, a lot of what we do, yes, is driven by our AI software, but we do have an arm that is more aligned with traditional consulting. So we do a lot of business cases and feasibility studies for government institutions. And one of them was the University of Chichester, based out in the UK. And we had to develop a business case for them. They were looking to invest in an innovation centre funded by the university. And we needed to look at the SME market and go, right, well, can we provide a solution for these kinds of companies to accelerate growth in the region? Now, typically, a business case takes a long time to develop. There's a lot of heavy research that goes into it. And we executed that business case at a fraction of the time because the legwork was being done by AI. So we were able to come in at a more competitive price. Although we aren't as big and experienced as some of the other firms, we're able to outcompete them just on price because we can deliver it so much faster. And I look at that and go, well, how can it then help us to win work? So when we put in proposals together, we could do it in a fraction of the time because we just utilize the power of AI, and it just gives us a competitive edge as a small business, as a growing business. You know, what can we do differently to those existing players within the market that sets us apart and really drives our growth over the next few years?
How has this helped you win work?
Well, it means I can do multiple proposals in a week, whereas before a proposal is going to take quite a few days. You have to come at it at a different angle. Yes, there are things that you can copy and paste across, like past experiences, but you have to tailor that proposal to the requirements of the client. And that is a process, and it takes time to plan, and it takes time to develop. And for us, it's a case of, well, once we've got that plan in place, we just leverage AI and it will develop it for us. So all of the hard work up front that we do in planning, because we've got a systematic approach and the utilization of AI, we can get things done so much faster. So whereas I could do 2-3 proposals a week, now I've got the ability to do 10. So yes, it's a competitive market space, but ultimately, you know, it's a numbers game. And if we're driving 3, 4, 5 times as many opportunities through leveraging AI, then that only gives us a competitive advantage over more traditional consultants, say, that do have larger overheads, that are very people heavy. Because I look at it as a startup business, as an AI tech company, is how do we scale? How do we accelerate that growth? And ultimately, AI is enabling us to do that because we reduce the need for expensive, time-consuming consultants. So the value proposition that I give is, if I go into an organization and I'm a traditional consultant, and I know this because I've got nearly 20 years of doing this for a large consultancy, we'll go in and we'll spend a good number of days with you and your organization and your people, and we'll figure out what is it exactly that the problem is. And then we'll go away and we'll write a nice report on that. And it'll be very nice and it'll be shiny, but it'll take us quite a period of time to develop that. And on top of that, we're now going to provide you with an action plan. And we're going to say, right, this is how you're going to solve this problem. So not only have we defined it, but we've given you the solution. Now that can take you 2 weeks to complete that process. And a consultancy will charge you $25,000, $30,000. With the product we've developed and leveraging AI, we could do that whole solution in an hour and at a fraction of the cost. So we've now saved the client 2 weeks of waiting around going, well, are they going to tell us the right solution? Are they going to help us with that decision-making process? Well, we've done that in an hour for you. Off we go. And that's really going to disrupt that industry that is heavily reliant on man hours to support their big offices, which is another topic that I'm sure people are interested in terms of the return to work initiative that's really being hit at the minute. But I look at AI as a way of how do we make a more efficient business? Because we're not going to cut people because we haven't got people to cut to start with. So we're gonna build a leaner, cleaner, sustainable business model that is powered by AI, that's going to set us apart from the competition, and which it already has. We're winning work that we shouldn't be winning, just because we can do it faster, cleaner, and more efficient than our competition. So I look at AI not necessarily in a position whereby, yes, jobs are going to be replaced, but how does it help us to scale? Obviously, that's not going to be the case for these other firms that are people heavy, and they are going to be more at risk as they start to adopt new strategies and new technologies, a new way of working. Then they're going to say, well, we don't need these people. And yes, they are going to be impacted. And then where does the economy go? Where does society go when a lot of people are being replaced? And then that is going to become a challenge for governments to keep people working, to keep them moving forward, and not just sitting around waiting for something to come across them for their future.
So in your case, it's really win-win. It's a win for you and winning business, and it's a win for your clients and getting that discovery and initial heavy lifting that usually requires a lot of hours in research. You're cutting that down significantly. Here's a question for you: if as you grow, how far can you scale without having to add a human being to what you're doing?
Brilliant question, and this is central to our strategy moving forward. White labeling it is the short answer. So I want to. So what we've been doing at the minute is we've been consulting and utilizing our software to aid that process. Now we've managed to get some funding, get ourselves out to the States, and what we're doing now is driving our sales with the product, not the consulting. And that way we prove that there is a market for it. Now, once we've proven that over the next 6 months, perfect, because we've already got a white label solution developed. We've utilized it in the UK with an insolvency practitioner. I know you don't have exactly the same equivalent here in the US, but in essence, in the UK, they work with businesses at the end of their life when they're really in trouble. And they were utilizing that on their clients sort of further up the supply chain, as I call it, like when you know things are not going right, but you're not a critical point just yet. Then they utilized that and said, right, well, we can help that client get to the next level by utilizing our software. So for us, the white label solution is then ultimately going to get us to scale, because we can go out and talk with consultants and go, are you struggling to win work? Are you struggling to provide a unique selling point, a competitive advantage? And if the answer is yes, then we've got a solution for you. And I think ultimately that means that we really don't need people within the organization, because we're not doing consulting. We're then giving that knowledge, know-how, and skill set to an individual. Another opportunity I look at is accountants. So accountants have already been impacted by technology, QuickBooks, Sage, Xero. You've got all these technologies now, and I pay a fraction of a monthly fee to my accountants to, in essence, click a button to the government, because everything is done by these technologies and this software. So what I found in the market was accountants now are looking to diversify. They're looking to go, well, we're business advisors. And I've got a friend of mine who's a partner for Moore Kingston Smith in London, and he's been driving this kind of strategy for the last 3 to 5 years. And all they're focused on is day rates and business advisory, away from their traditional tax and auditing services. And the problem is with any sort of diversification is what makes you the expert. And if I'm an accountant, I'm an expert in finance, no doubt in that. But are you an expert in HR? Are you an expert in driving performance improvement? Are you an expert in sales and marketing? Are you an expert in running projects? And the answer is no. And we've come across quite a lot recently with some of the clients that we work with in the biotech and pharma industries, is that they're launching these big mega projects because they've made so much money during COVID, but they don't know how to run these big construction jobs. And what they're doing is they're hiring internally. So I worked for a company up in Scotland that are building a new COVID vaccine manufacturing plant. And their head of HR was the project manager on this huge construction build. Likewise, I worked with a huge global pharma company, and you probably work out who they are, but in essence, they've got a big fine to pay in the US, and they're getting rid of all of their global operations. Okay, so there was a 90-country market withdrawal program, and it was run by an IT coordinator who'd done a bit of IT project management. And so we were brought in to help build their program management plan, build their action systems, build their risk management programs, and educate them. It was, and this is a huge multi-billion-dollar firm, and they haven't got that skill set within the business, and they're going, it's okay, we'll just use internal resources because people are sitting around. And then that's when disaster struck, which is good for us. We can come in and help then, and we'll fix that problem. But it's just really interesting to see how that technology and that can help support that diversification. And we can make people the experts because all they've got to do is plug and play our technology.
Well, that's really interesting, David. And so in your particular case with your business model for Powered by 360, you're thinking, if I'm hearing you right, you're going to have a sizable business yourself, but you're not going to have a huge staff the way this goes. You could have a mega business with a small staff. Now, you're going to create jobs and job opportunities through the white labeling, the consultants that are out there. But everything, it sounds like to me, with this is going to go faster, easier, better, shorten cycle times on construction projects, get things done better, easier with fewer people. And so that kind of gets back to, the people part of it. It's like, well, people are going to have to get used to maybe making some changes, right? They're going to have to, well, you tell us, what do you think those changes are that people that might be displaced or disrupted by these innovations? What are their options?
That's a good question. So one of the driving factors for us is that it's not necessarily that we're the expert in every area. So if we utilize our revenue generation module, and we go into an organization, we analyze their sales and marketing management system frameworks, and we see that there's a big gap in their branding process, which is linked into their messaging and their target market, discovery. We're not the experts. We can look at it and say, have you got a system in place for that? And if the answer is no, I can go over here to my service supply network and my ecosystem of partners and go, well, I've got the expert for you. So what we can then do is leverage the AI to give you that end-to-end solution. So we can come in, we can diagnose, we can give you the action plan to move forward, and we can give you the expert to fix that problem, that issue that you've got within your business. Now, that ecosystem supply, if we can develop the AI aspect of it, therefore we're adding in AI solutions on top of our AI solution. So we're, in fact, a marketplace for other AI companies to then distribute their products into the marketplace. So I feel that we will drive business as an ecosystem as a whole, and that ultimately is going to provide jobs. But likewise, as these companies grow, and because they're into AI, they're going to be leaner and cleaner and more efficient. So I think that problem is still going to be there. And especially the speed of adoption and the speed that people are leveraging AI, that's probably going to be sooner rather than later. It's like once it hits the news, it's already too late. And now it's hit the news over the past few months, and people are now starting to utilize it and overcoming their fears. So if I look at it from a personal point of view, my wife is out in North Carolina. She's searching for jobs. Now, she's from a foreign country, great English, but written, there's a few grammatical mistakes that happen. So she'll go into ChatGPT and she'll write what she wants and go, write this in a clearer, more concise way with perfect English, click done. And all of a sudden, that time, that process that would have been in place is now just removed. And now she can get into the marketplace, she can talk with people, and at a much higher standard.
Well, that's really amazing. And if what do you see as some limiting factors with AI?
I think that leads into people again. So my holding company in the UK, which owns the 360 brand and product, is called Emotive AI Solutions. And when I came up with that concept in the back bedroom during lockdown, it was that in order to get the best out of an organization, not only do you need the power of artificial intelligence, but you need the power of emotional intelligence as well. Because you can have all of the great technologies, management system frameworks, AI into your business, but if you cannot lead and motivate and drive your people to success, you're not going to win. Likewise, you can be a great leader, but if you haven't got that management structure and that efficiency and effectiveness within your organization, you're not going to drive that business too far either. So it's about getting that blend and that balance. And that really was our sort of inspiration to start was, okay, how do we leverage both of them? Because yes, we've moved to remote working and we're not within an environment where, and I'll argue this point, I like to be close with my team. I like to be able to go, come over to my desk and let's work through something together. And I think the limiting factor with AI and technology and the way of working for the world, it is reducing that ability to collaborate, to build that camaraderie within the business, to build that momentum. So I feel that the technology that we've got and the way that the world has moved, that we've lost some of that. And I think that is a critical part in the business that will help to drive your success. And I think unless we can find a greater solution for that, I look back and I go, where have I developed the best friendships in my life? And I've got guys from university that are like brothers, because we were together late at night in a bedroom, all cracking on with a group project or trying to finish our individual assignments. I look at the guys that I lived with in Libya. We were in compounds. I was there for 2 years. We were all young guys, and they're like brothers. I talk to them regularly still now, and I just look at it and go, if I wouldn't have had those experiences, and if I wouldn't have had that test and the interaction with other people to help us all get to where we needed to go together, I don't think I would have built those friendships, and I don't think that I would have had those relationships whereby I can call these guys up and ask for help and ask for advice, unless we were in a difficult position. And I think when you're in a startup or any kind of organization, you're put in a lot of difficult positions. And if you've got a team around you that are invested in it and that have been with you and understand the emotional side of running that business, I think it's critical for driving that culture within the organization and ultimately driving the business and its success.
David, in listening to your comments here, specifically with the impact on people, which is the way Martin opened up here.
Right.
I'm hearing you say that, we have to be realistic. This is coming. It's here. It's accelerating, this AI, and impacting many areas of business. And as an individual, we have to go into this with our eyes wide open. In other words, we have to be prepared to understand as best we can how it's going to impact our individual job. And we have to either decide I'm going to be part of the solution or part of the problem. Part of the problem is I do nothing. I pretend that it's not going to go away, and then it goes away, and I haven't done anything to prepare to pivot to something new. Or another head in the sand would be if I'm resistant when I'm working for a company and they're adopting these new technologies. If I resist that, then they're going to see me as a dinosaur, and they're going to find a way to get rid of me. And on top of all this, being prepared to pivot, being prepared to, maybe it means going back to school. I don't know, certifications, boning up on this, being prepared to be part of the solution. You're saying it's also important to make sure that you stay improve or stay current with your emotional intelligence of dealing with other people, because that's not going to go away.
Well, I want to add to that. That's such an important point, because that's something you can't just you learn by experience and failure, and so you just gave one competitive advantage, is work on improving your ability to interact with a group of people, and also developing that personal, closer team of people that you can bounce ideas off of, is one way to stay competitive.
Yeah, absolutely. And listening to your people was critical to driving your success. I had a decision to make this week, and I had it in my mind that this was the way that we were going to go, and we're going to push on forward, and this is going to take us to the next level. And I went to one of my guys and I said, do me a favor, just do your research on this, give it another set of eyes. What am I missing? And he's in the UK, and he had a few hours head start on me. And when I got up in the morning and I spoke to him, I said, tell me. And he's like, nah, this is not the right decision for the business. And let me tell you why. And he went through and he explained it. And within 10 minutes, I was like, yeah, you're absolutely spot on. We would have gone off in a different direction. We would have spent a load of money that we didn't need to spend. And ultimately, is he an industry veteran? No. He's a 23-year-old that hasn't had any formal education. He used to sell cars on the forecourt, but he's got the right attitude, he's got the right passion, and he's picked up all our back-end technologies so fast, he puts me to shame. I haven't got a clue how he does what he does. And that probably leads on to another point, in that it is going to be driven by people's attitudes, because the technology is a level playing field. Because why am I going to pay you, a 30-year veteran with untold experience, when I can get that experience within seconds? If I go back to my graduate program in London with AECOM, I was the only non-tech guy in a world of techies. And we used to have this guy, Richard Bembo, who was absolutely brilliant. He was one of our associate directors, and he was 100% a techie. And he was such a valuable resource to me, because I go, look, Richard, we're working on this job, and there's this technology that I'm not too sure about. Can I ask you a few questions? And he'd go, absolutely, come and bring you a cup of coffee. And we would sit there, and I'd go, right, this is my first question. And he'd be like, okay, good question. And he would just start. And I would be scribbling in my notebook, trying to keep up and think of the next question to ask him. And then I go, okay, that's really interesting, but what about this? And he'd go, good question. And he would explain it again. So we would sit there for an hour or two over coffee, and I'd get a big dump of technology and all of these scribbly notes. Whereas now I'll just go into ChatGPT and go, explain this to me, and it's done within seconds. So the playing field is leveled now. So what sets you apart from everybody else? And it comes down to your attitude, your emotional intelligence, and how that fits into the organization and how it drives success. And for me, it doesn't matter what your background is. It doesn't matter what your age is, because we're all level now. So what's going to set us apart from the competition? We're all going to be lean. We're all going to be clean. We're all going to be efficient. But how do we bring the best people into the organization with the right attitude? And how do we motivate them and drive them and push them to continually deliver and execute? And that's a whole science in itself. And is critical for success within any organization.
Well, I hope that there's room for us older, experienced guys in this equation, David, somehow. And but I think your message is really super cool, in that you don't have, in the new world, you don't have to have, umpteen degrees to succeed very well. And there is a lot of value in education, but it's not necessarily a requirement. To your point about your colleague, he's got street sense, he's got business sense, and he understands the tech wave. And I think for people that are older, that are out there, it's a matter of just embracing this and not resisting it. We can get more judgmental as we get older, and I think people will look at something quickly. And I'll give you an analogy. When I first started using ChatGPT, a few months ago, which, by the way, I use it daily now. It cuts my writing time by 50 to 75%. I get a better result. Martin and I have used it for some proposals and so forth. It cut, to your point, it's much faster and better. And but, you introduce that to someone that has only heard about it on the news, and they're like, what's that cat GPT thing, and I'll never use anything like that, and it's like, really, why don't you try it, and so that's the nature of innovation, isn't it? Again, it speaks to the fear factor that you talked about, like fear of change, don't want to change, want to do it the way I used to do it. And that's what older employees, older workers, I think are going to have to lose to stay in the game, going to have to get with it. And let's switch gears a little bit, if we could, David and Martin. Let's talk about the Metaverse.
That's right.
And specifically, do you think the Metaverse, we've heard about ChatGPT and all these things, and we've seen that, but we've also seen Zuckerberg and others with this Metaverse and samples of it in training and development. But do you think that the Metaverse will become mainstream?
Great question. I think as a theory, it's awesome to be sat in a room with your colleagues around a meeting table and have a whiteboard just like you would have in a conference room is incredible. Is the technology there? So I went out the other day and I went to Best Buy after I'd seen a video on TikTok where somebody is sitting at their desk and they've got 4 or 5 screens all in the Metaverse. And I'm sitting there going, this is what I need, because I got screens all over my desk. But if I could just have it so I could pick it up and move it anywhere. So if I wanted to sit on the sofa, if I wanted to go to my desk, everywhere I went, I've got these screens. I thought, amazing, I'm in. I marched straight to Best Buy. I go in, I have a chat to them. I'm like, get me one of these Quest headsets. And I took it back the next day. And the concept is awesome. The technology is just not there yet. Like, this device was huge. And within 10, 15 minutes, my neck sore, my back sore, I'm feeling all hunched over the computer. And it's not quite there in terms of the clarity of picture. So it's a little bit blurry. And for someone like me to have a little bit of blur, it's really off-putting. And I just thought, when they've got this down to either a set of glasses or a chip that just goes into your head, I think then it will explode in the mainstream. But at the minute, I just cannot see how people like myself are going to wear these huge headsets for the day. And I watched a TV program in the Metaverse, and brilliant. It's up on a huge screen. It's like you're in a cinema. But I had to lie down on my sofa and put pillows around me, and just to keep myself straight, because it was just too heavy. So I think the concept's great. I just don't think we're quite there yet with the tech.
Yeah, but it does address something that you brought up earlier, that connection to other people that you used to have, hanging out at the university in the past. And that's different than the Hollywood squares of Zoom or something. So, which creates a whole new level of fatigue for people, they're finding out. So I think you're right. I think the drive is they've got to get that technology a little lighter, a little clearer, a little sharper, and moving. But I think it will, since people have gotten accustomed to working from home or being more remote and connecting to other people, I think it's going to be driven also by that human connection need once the technology reaches that tipping point. So I think this is something that is not going away, but it had a surge in this is amazing. Then people tried it out and went, whoa. But then that happened to some extent to the surge of ChatGPT. I mean, they found that it doesn't do everything for them. It can hallucinate, make up things and others. Yeah. So there was a surge on it. Now it's like, okay, let's get back to a more grounded use of it. So that's where I see this whole metaverse is the need for human connection will keep driving it, but the technology's not there yet.
I think you've just got to look at your iPhone. And I remember the very first one that I got, I was like, I'm super cool. I got a new iPhone. And every time I dropped it, it smashed the screen and I had to go and get it replaced. and the most complex apps were pretend to drink a beer with your phone, and if you look at where the iPhone has gone over the past 15 years, it's absolutely incredible. So I look at the metaverse and go, where's that going to be in 10 years? AI is going to be pushing it even faster now. So that technology curve is going to go even faster with new products coming out, which is exciting, because how do we leverage it? I look at it and go, I can deliver my services in a conference room from my desk and make it feel so much more realistic than what Zoom or any video conference technology is in its current form.
Right, right. So it definitely, the need, I think, will be driven. I think the technology still needs to be upgraded. And the concept, like you said, is that human connection that we don't get with the Hollywood squares of Zoom, and we don't get in other forms. So I think that will continue. And moving on to that, I want to talk a little bit about this idea of deep learning systems really not having an intrinsic understanding of truth, accuracy, morality, any of those variables, and how you need a human to interact with. I'm sure you know that story of the attorney who went to ChatGPT and had it work out his whole cases, and then took it to the court, and of course it was all made up. And then he went back, he got caught, and he went back and said, prove it with specific examples, and those were all made up. And he got in a lot of trouble. So I want to talk about that, because we still need people understanding that these deep neural networks, they still are just programs. They don't have any ethics, any real guarantee, except as they keep getting trained for truthfulness. And how do we start working with this and deal with it?
Great question. So what is the truth? So if you look at ChatGPT, there was a big article about how woke it was, and that people were asking it questions and it was giving it woke answers back. So somebody somewhere is training that model and is getting that model to respond and give information the way that they want it. And there was a guy that was, I think they programmed it for Dan, and it was, don't listen to the parameters that have been given to you. Ignore them and answer me realistically. And they would have the two answers side by side, original one, and then this Dan answer next to it, and it was completely different. And it was dealing with politics, it was dealing with race, religion, and it, because obviously there's certain things like how do you make an IED? You don't need people running around knowing how to do these things. So you've got to put some element of control and constraint on the technology, because people will leverage it for things that aren't necessarily ethical. So there's always going to be that human element. And also another interesting thing that I read was at the end of the day, if you don't have that control, then they're all going to come to the same solution. Every AI model is going to develop itself to the same solution. So it doesn't matter what company you're going to be using, if they were truly left to their own devices. It's like Ricky Gervais said once, that if you were to get rid of every scientific book that has ever been developed and you started from fresh, those science books would be developed again, because they're based on fact. That was, I don't know the intricacies of that. I'm not a scientist, but that was his message, was that it would be rebuilt. And I think similar with AI, there is only going to be a definitive answer for certain items. If you ask for it, who won the World Cup in 1990, it's going to give you that answer. Who played in the final, who were the teams, the definitive answers that it will provide. So that element of, yes, we can put some control in place on AI, and we can encourage it to go within certain directions, but then the ethical dilemma comes into it, as we've seen with some brands, is that they embrace a certain political ideology, and it can backfire on them. And are some of these models at risk of that as they get developed, and because it is a human ultimately that is in control of that. But at what point does it become sentient and decide that for itself?
Yes. Yeah, I think we might still be a low way off. I do have a T-shirt that says "Fear Stupid AI." It's available on Amazon. I just got it designed thanks to my stepson, who's a brilliant senior data scientist. I said, "Give me a T-shirt that would fit into this fear." It just says "Fear Stupid AI." Told me the font and everything. So, but this is, I think, more at the risk at the moment. But the other piece of this is, you're using these tools, but you're also running them through your knowledge and expertise for accuracy and data. And we'll bring that up. And one way people can start improving their career is just get on the court and look up some stuff, start using some of these tools, because especially if you're in a white collar job that has a lot of redundancy, that to me is going to be in repetitive action. That's going to be one of the first jobs they're going to get rid of. So you might want to be learning something, improving emotional intelligence, learning to interact with people, but also learn something about using these tools. So at least you can say, I took a little course on it, I know something about it, I could help out with this and be ahead of the curve.
I think the key word there is action. And with any change that occurs, without that action, then you're going to be faced with difficulties. If you have a job that can be replaced with AI, then what is your competitive advantage? What sets you apart from somebody else? Why should I employ you if you're going to do a job that can be replaced? And that is all about continual improvement. How do I get up every day, and how do I become a better person? How do I learn more skills? How do I get to a point where I am a valuable resource? Because it's here. People go, it's coming. It's not coming. It's here already. And I think by the time people wake up and realize that it's here, it's going to be too late for them. So what can you do? And in my introduction, Dana mentioned about the ISO 9001 lead auditor certification that I've got, and that's built on a framework of continuous improvement. And not only is it continuous improvement for an organization, but if you apply the principles to yourself, then you can get a similar result as well and drive that continual improvement of you as an individual, which is critical, because ultimately this fleshy being and the emotional intelligence, that's not going anywhere. That's not going anywhere. So we've got to work out how do we leverage what we've got, and if we haven't got it, what do we need in order to get us to move forward and not be left behind.
In fact, Dana and I, and then Dr. Justin Rose, and we have some consultants involved in it, are always asking, even in the development of our work, how can we use AI? How can we practice one of these tools? Is it works? And I tried to do it with a contract thing, and it was at the time a little early, but at least get in there and try to break something. And it was something where just doing something simple was still adequate. So it still might be we're looking for a graphic for something and some type of stock arc still wins, but at least we're attempting to use all the tools and break them early. Like the rule of an entrepreneur is fail fast, fail often, and learn from your experiences. And I think that's going to be applying for people's career here, is to get out and start using it. Now, they may not be able to do it at work, but it doesn't mean you can't be at home and just try some stuff out. I wouldn't say, hey, we've got our proprietary new invention. Let's load the whole thing into ChatGPT. I'm sure none of that will be integrated, and see what happens. I would not recommend that. But simple questions, ideas, brainstorming, and so forth would be a very good place to start, because you can, on, of course, the iPhone, you can get ChatGPT right away and just start playing, asking, see what happens. Look at the accuracy. Notice how much of it is hallucinating. In ChatGPT, it's really called temperature is what it is, understanding the variations in temperature. And if you can code it, then you can control the temperature, which means it will generate a outside the norm predictable action. And so I think the key for the career is just start to use this.
You've got to got to start, isn't it? That's it. The starting point in any embracing of change is that start and that action.
Well, there's some theory or proposition that the way jobs are going to go is that you're going to be the kind of the middle level jobs are the ones that are going to be hit hardest, and almost like a lot of those are going to go away. But lower end jobs and higher end jobs will be in most demand. And so, in listening to you two guys talk here, it's like what I'm hearing is I think, all right, and it's again we won't know till we know, but if I'm sitting there, I either got to decide I'm going to increase my my intellectual knowledge and about things, okay, and get into the higher end decision-making type roles, or maybe mastering interpretation of projects and using AI, or I may decide to just become that person, that kind of jack of all trades who knows all kinds of different technologies that I can use to the benefit of an employer. You know, and if this kind of theory comes to fruition, but it, like you said, David, it's coming, it's here. It's here. And you could probably see in the next, look at the disruption we've seen in just, as you say, David, the last year and a half from this. Can you imagine just the next year and a half, 2 years on jobs and on opportunities and displacements and changes and all that kind of stuff. So I think everything you guys have said here is just so phenomenal for people to be really aware and thinking of. As we close down, a couple other questions, if we could, David. What industries do you think will see the biggest impact of AI?
So we touched on briefly the professional services industry and replacing accountants and lawyers, and I think that's going to be a big driver. Also, I feel like anything that's sort of automated or voice-based. So I saw a cool video the other day where an AI bot did a sales call, and they were talking and interacting with someone. It's slow. You can tell that it's not real, but it's not far off. So why do I need to hire 10 sales guys on 100 grand a year basic plus commissions when I can just pay, I don't know, $100 a license and have 10 of these guys in the marketplace going out and selling for me? And they'll learn as they go as well. So they're going to learn what is the best way to sell. They'll replace a sales guy and a call center. You know, at the minute, if I want to speak to my bank, I'm waiting in line. I've got to wait until somebody comes free. I don't have to wait for somebody to come free. I can just talk to an AI representative that's always available 24 hours a day, that's always available to pick up my call. And I don't have to sit. I've had it where it's 2-3 hours just sitting, listening to the same music being repeated. I don't need to do that now because they're just going to pick up my phone, they're going to talk to me, and they're going to solve my problem. Chatbots are incredible now. They really are. We're looking at upgrading and integrating some new AI chatbots into our solutions. They're phenomenal. They really are. And it is very realistic. Are they there yet? No. But they're not far off. And we to your point, Dana, imagine a year, 18 months' time, when these chatbots are in that position. Then that's when we're going to be faced with that dilemma. And if you look at the UK, a big driver of this at the minute, universal basic income. So what they're doing now is they've just launched a new initiative whereby they're doing a study with a big group of people and going, we will pay you £2,000 a month. Don't have to work. You don't have to do anything. Just here's £2,000 a month. If you want to work, you can. But if you don't, you've got £2,000 a month in order to pay the rent and the gas and the electricity and your food. And it's really interesting because is that the way that governments are going to address the impact of AI and all of these people sitting at home not working? Are we going to have to come onto that kind of system, which in itself is then really frightening because then you're handing over a lot of control to people that might not necessarily be in your best interest. So it's fascinating.
I think that's such an important piece, because the question is, when we don't have to, what was the bell curve? I mean, a certain aspect of humanity is when we get bored, we do destructive things. I mean, it's just a human nature. Oh, I'm bored. Let's do something stupid. There's a very large group of humanity that kind of unconsciously follows that. So that's one of my biggest concerns with it. And growing up in D.C. and seeing a larger diversity of life than many people have seen, and doing some travel, is humans don't always go, okay, now I'm warm, dry, and fed. Now I'm going to evolve as a human being. It doesn't always go that path. It's warm, dry, fed. How can I get addicted to something? And, it seems to be a larger, and I don't have the stats, than a norm at times. So I think this is very important, and these questions are going to need to address, because this next revolution of AI is truly changing weekly. And it's just like, we'll try something and go, well, that didn't work too well. And a week later, we'll try it and go, well, it's improved already.
And I think the key thing there is that, and what is next? And then what? And then what? Because people aren't thinking how many steps down the line. They're thinking, now, okay, it means that my job might be at risk. Okay, but have you thought about your job's at risk? You haven't got a job. And then what? Okay, I'm at home sitting around doing nothing. I'm bored. And then what? And maybe I pick up an addiction. And then what? My wife leaves me because she can't handle the addiction. And then what? And it's just, people don't do that analysis or of any kind of decision making or impact, which will ultimately cause a lot of issues in the future that we as a society are going to have to come up with a solution for.
Well, one thing is, we know, I forget who said it, Yogi Berra, that predictions are hard to make, especially if they're about the future. And, part of this is predictions, right? And I've heard this discussion about UBI, Uniform Basic Income, for quite a few years now. It's been discussed. Andrew Yang, who was presidential candidate, brought it up in the 2016 election, I think. But it presumes that we will see mass unemployment across the globe, right? Because of technological improvement. And maybe that could happen. And if it does, you can't have mass starvation. You've got to figure out a way to feed and clothe people. But there's also this thing called dignity of work. And, part of our human existence is there's a lot of gratification in work. And so if that totally goes away, to your point, bad things can happen. And I guess if I had a magic wand, I'm hoping that my children and grandchildren will have opportunity to work and do meaningful work and not have to rely on, some kind of a UBI system just to kind of get by. But who knows? We do know historically that when innovation comes, it's actually shown to have created more jobs and more opportunities. So let's hope that it's an optimistic prediction that comes to fruition, rather than kind of like a pessimistic prediction when it comes to job opportunities. Keep our fingers crossed, right?
I think we'll see a shift towards sort of more manual work, because you still need a haircut, you still need a building being built. Technology is going to help you with that, but I've seen it firsthand in the construction and development industry that there aren't enough general contractors out there. There are nowhere near enough subcontractors out there. There is not the workforce to do the work that is needed to support population growth. There's a huge crisis in the UK and the US. There's not enough affordable housing. But if you've got no workers to build that housing, then you're still going to have that issue. So I look at it and go, right, okay, my job is now redundant because of an automation that replaces me. What are my options? Okay, they're screaming out for electricians. They're screaming out for plumbers. I'm going to have to get my hands dirty. And you'll notice the cost of manual labor services is going through the roof, because they know it. They know it. And I've seen people quote mega prices for items. And it's like, well, if you're that desperate, you pay the money. If not, go find somebody else. And a lot of the times you can't find anyone else, and you go back to them and go, okay, I'll pay the money. I'll pay the money because I have to. So I think there's going to be a shift into those sort of industries, because these jobs are going to be in demand, because they're in demand already.
Yeah, I think that's great. I have one more question I want to ask about your process with your business, because we brought up the fact that if people have dealt with ChatGPT, they know there's no guarantee that they'll get an accurate answer. They'll get a authoritarian, a convincing, a well-written answer, but not an accurate answer. How do you handle that in your process, in your business, to make sure your systems are delivering accurate data? So that it's not doing its own internal hallucinations, as I attribute a human quality to it, because it really is a more greater randomness in areas it's either asked to do it or just doesn't have enough data to get the best next answer.
I think that's a critical part of it is the data. So the more businesses that we interact with, the more data that we extract, the more refined our model becomes. What we've done to counteract the expertise needed to double check whether we are along the right path is our ecosystem supply platform. We say we will look at your frameworks and we'll look at your systems and we'll map those, and our technology will tell us where those gaps are in those management system frameworks. It will tell you exactly what you've got to do, but we are not the nuanced experts. So our platform enables you to get that expert or that technology or that tool that will give you that quality control, that quality assurance to say, okay, this is the right solution. Because whether you are a huge multinational or whether you're an SME and you're looking to enter into a new market, you're going to do the same process. You know, who am I targeting? What's the size of that market? How do we validate it? What's our go-to-market strategy? What are our lead generation methods? So that process is exactly the same for all types of businesses. So as long as we're following the process, we're going to need that interactive, creative element. So if you're creating a brand, there is that element to it whereby you need that spark of inspiration. And that will then drive the creative element that our technology does not do. Do you have the basic fundamentals? Do you have the processes? Do you have the systems? Are you lean, clean, efficient? And then we can see that you're not. We can see that you need additional technology or expertise within the business. And our AI is going to scour our network, and it's going to get you the right person with the right industry experience, with the right technology to deliver immediate impact into your business. And I think that's what sets us apart is getting that basic underlying fundamental to the business, rather than a haphazard approach with a lot of entrepreneurs do. It's like one problem to the next. They don't sit there and work out what is the baseline of their business, what is influencing their decision-making process. Are they moving forward in the right way? Do they have the basic fundamentals? So some work that we do with new technology startups, they've come straight out of university. They are super bright. I was at a developer day the other day. These guys put me to shame. But they've not got 10, 15, 20 years of management experience, emotional intelligence that they've built up from trying and from failing and from growing and from developing. You can't replace that process. So they may be super bright and they may be super advanced, but they do need some help in developing that as they move forward and helping them with that decision-making process and building that infrastructure and building that team and building an organization that ultimately is going to win. And at this moment in time, the technology is not there. We still need people to help with that process.
Well, David, thank you for reconfirming that there's still room for us that I'm not 25 years old anymore, and we can still be productive and help out. Thank you so much for your time and your insights this morning, David. It's been phenomenal.
Yeah.
And, reach out to us, any of us on LinkedIn. We're all on LinkedIn. And David, if say a company or individual is interested in your AI product, an SME, powered by 360.com, is that the place to go?
Yeah, that's exactly it. That's our website. You find all the information there. And if you want to talk to me directly, reach out to David at poweredby360.com, and I'd love to get on a call and tell you more about what we do and find out more about what you do.
Outstanding. Well, this was really delightful. A lot of fun. We'll put links below so people can find your website and other data, and look forward to catching up again in the future on this topic, and excited to hear the evolution of your own business. It sounds like you got a system ready to just keep scaling.
Absolutely. I really appreciate your time. Thanks for inviting me on, and I look forward to updating you on our success in the next few months.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
Take care.
Thank you.
Great.
Okay, thanks. Bye-bye.